With GB News Breakfast, with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was in fact a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
We're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, but I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
No spin, no bias, no censorship. I'm Dan Wootton tonight. As a bullish Boris Johnson correctly says it would be wrong to abandon the country amid rumblings of a Tory uprising.
I just cannot see how actually it would be responsible right now, given everything that is going on.
Are the Tory rebels today branded vain and irresponsible for risking a nightmare lefty coalition? Are they bad for Britain? That's our big debate tonight at 10 p.m, featuring my superstar panel, the media personality and writer Christine Hamilton, entrepreneur and activist Adam Brooks, and broadcaster Ashley James. As the French opt to launch a pathetic new diplomatic war with the UK rather than take responsibility for the appalling events of the Champions League final, I call for an immediate apology to Liverpool fans after it emerged today that claims of widespread ticket counterfeiting were a false flag. That's in my digest coming up in just a moment. As Nicola Sturgeon defends the £20 million price tag of Indy Ref 2, how can the Scottish Tories fight back against her irresponsible bid to break up the union? The party's new chairman, Craig Hoy, is taking a stand for ordinary Scots who don't buy into the First Minister's cult of personality. He's here at 10:15. As a statue to our first female Prime Minister is officially unveiled following repeated attacks, should modern Britain be learning from Margaret Thatcher instead of desecrating her memory? The Iron Lady's former aide Niall Gardner is here on that and has some advice for the Tory party about how they can return to their Thatcherite roots too. He's today's outsider at 9:50. As she comes out swinging against her critics.
You can't go halfway and be like, I support trans women and trans people, but only to a certain point.
Should trans swimmer Leah Thomas be allowed to compete against British women in the Olympics? US superstar journalist Megyn Kelly breaks down the interview, making quite a splash stateside at 9:25. As he attempts to roll back on his controversial comments today, is the Archbishop of Canterbury right that we should forgive Prince Andrew? Ingrid Stewart, editor-in-chief of Majesty magazine, dukes it out with lawyer Rad Seeger. In the clash tonight at 9:35, I'll get your all-important verdict on this too. After Virgin Atlantic becomes the first UK airline to allow its staff to display ink, is it wrong to judge people for having tattoos? Well, columnist extraordinaire Rod Little, he has a very strong opinion on this, and he's gearing up for a showdown with Britain's most tattooed man. It's sure to be an explosive uncancelled at 10:40. As crash injuries quadruple, are e-scooters just too dangerous to be embraced by Brits? I'll debate with my panel, one of whom has endured personal tragedy related to these death machines. Plus, is Spotify free speech hero Joe Rogan right that it's now the left who are anti-liberty?
Hey, the left has gone so far left, so radical, that the right are the ones that are celebrating comedians and celebrating Chappelle.
All that coming up in the Media Buzz at 10:30. And don't forget, you'll get a first look at tomorrow's newspaper front pages as they drop throughout the show. And it's the Queen of the United Kingdom up versus the Queen of the Adam Brooks household. In tonight's Greatest Britain and Union Jackass, all will be explained as my panel reveal their nominations at 10:50, so do stay up with us tonight. This is Dan Wootton tonight. Let's go. Just one thing first, though. Just as the UK goes into full-on celebration mode for the Queen's Platinum Jubilee, the COVID killjoys are back. And it seems like they want to rename this event the Platinum Jubilee. If you don't know what I mean, look at this from the Kent County Council today.
Meeting up with friends and family this long bank holiday weekend? Here are 5 things you can do to help keep everyone safe. 1. Get vaccinated to reduce your risk of becoming seriously ill. 2. If you feel unwell and have flu-like or COVID-19 symptoms and a high temperature, avoid close contact with others and stay at home if you can. 3. Let in fresh air when you meet others indoors, especially if they're at high risk from COVID-19. 4. Wash your hands regularly and cover your mouth and nose if you cough or sneeze. 5. Wear a face covering in crowded and enclosed places and when coming into contact with people at higher risk from COVID-19.
Can you believe that's the message they want to send to Brits this weekend? Is there any event the public health zealots and killjoys won't hijack to spread their COVID scaremongering? Meanwhile, the Britain haters at the Guardian newspaper offered today a guide on how to survive the Jubilee for Republicans. So it included helpful advice like this. If you aren't bothered about having difficult chats with your monarchist neighbours, there are all manner of issues to raise over the coming days. The cost of the royals is an old favourite, £345 million a year, according to the campaign group Republic. God, that's so fun, aren't they, at The Guardian? Anyway, I will be here as normal tomorrow night with all of the reaction from the first day of the Platinum Jubilee, including Trooping the Colour, details of Harry and Meghan's arrival, and we're going to have an exclusive bombshell royal poll as well. So please do join us to celebrate Her Majesty as normal Bank Holiday Special Thursday on GB News from 9 p.m. But tonight, I'm celebrating with my superstar panel, the writer and media personality Christine Hamilton, the businessman and activist Adam Brooks, and broadcaster Ashley James. But before all of that, the news with Polly Middlehurst.
Dan, thank you. Good evening to you. Well, the breaking news this evening is that Johnny Depp has won his multi-million-pound US defamation lawsuit against his ex-wife, Amber Heard. That news coming to us within the last half hour or so. After 6 weeks of testimony in Fairfax, Virginia, in the courthouse, the jury unanimously found Amber Heard did defame Mr. Depp in her 2018 article in which she claimed she was a victim of domestic abuse. The jury have awarded Johnny Depp £8 million in compensatory damages and £4 million in punitive damages. Here's what happened in court a short time ago.
Do you find that Mr. Depp has proven all the elements of defamation? Answer, yes. Has Mr. Depp proven by a greater weight of the evidence that question, the statement was made or published by Ms. Heard? Answer, yes. Question, the statement was about Mr. Depp. Answer, yes. Question, the statement was false. Answer, yes. Question, the statement has a defamatory implication about Mr. Depp. Answer, yes. Question, the defamatory implication was designed and intended by Ms. Heard. Answer, yes.
Well, you may see the pictures on GB News television of Amber Heard there in the courtroom in Fairfax, Virginia. Johnny Depp not present, apparently watching remotely from the UK, but he has spoken after that verdict and he has thanked the jury, saying they have given him his life back and that he now feels at peace. Amber Heard has said the disappointment she feels is beyond words, and she's sadder still that she had lost the right to speak freely and openly. More on that, no doubt, in Dan Wootton's programme later. Meanwhile, back here in the UK, the Transport Secretary has told aviation industry leaders a repeat of half-term travel chaos cannot be tolerated during the summer. More than 150 UK flights were cancelled today alone, forcing passengers to wait in long queues at airports. British Airways cancelled 124 flights at Heathrow. EasyJet cancelled over 30 flights from Gatwick. And Grant Shapps acknowledged staff shortages are causing strain, but said it's no excuse for poor planning by management and overbooking flights. In international news, the US president has announced a new £560 million military package for Ukraine. That's going to include advanced long-range rocket systems. The Kremlin has criticised the move, saying it'll widen the conflict and increase the risk of direct confrontation with Washington. The US Secretary of State says Ukraine won't use long-range weapons against targets on Russian soil. Well, in a joint news conference this afternoon with Antony Blinken, the NATO Secretary-General Jens Stoltenberg said escalation of the war must be avoided.
The strong support provided by NATO and allies helps ensure that President Putin's brutal aggression is not rewarded and that Ukraine prevails. At the same time, we must prevent the conflict from escalating. So we have increased our presence in the eastern part of the alliance to remove any room for miscalculation in Moscow about NATO's readiness and determination to defend and protect all NATO allies.
You're up to date on TV, online and on your radio via DAB+. You're with GB News, and now it's time for Dan Wootton Tonight.
The French police owe Liverpool fans an apology. I've watched this story unfold all week with growing horror at the disingenuous degradation of English football fans who, as it turned out, had done absolutely nothing wrong. Following the appalling scenes at Stade de France on Saturday night, French authorities blamed the English supporters. They even blamed Liverpool manager Jurgen Klopp. Then they claimed there were 40,000 fake tickets at the Champions League final. The official tally is just 2,589. So looking at the scenes from Saturday night, where Liverpool fans were pelted with pepper spray and tear gas, it's pretty obvious to me who was in the wrong. Absolutely shocking stuff. And the narrative blaming Liverpool fans also doesn't add up when Madrid fans reported a similar experience of bottlenecks, chaos and tear gas, especially given there is footage of what appears to be French locals and Madrid fans jumping the stadium fence and sprinting past security. Look. The chairman of Liverpool, Tom Werner, has demanded an apology from French Sports Minister Amélie Oudéa-Castéra after she accused the club of letting their supporters loose. But most shameful, I have to say, is France's Britain-hating Interior Minister, Gérard Darmanin, who first blamed Klopp by saying The Liverpool coach a few days ago had encouraged supporters to come to France even if they didn't have tickets. And then he outrageously turned on all English clubs by adding, I think the comparison with rugby games or Olympics is a bit disproportionate because it is only in football with certain English clubs that there are these problems. No, sir, the problem is with France and its appalling organisation of this event. It's far easier to launch a pathetic new diplomatic war with the UK rather than examine this monumental fiasco which could have resulted in unnecessary injury and death. But rival French politicians know that's what Macron's new government must do, given the country will host the Rugby World Cup next year and the Olympics in 2024. To respond now, my superstar panel, the writer and media personality Christine Hamilton, the businessman and activist Adam Brooks, and the broadcaster Ashley James. Christine Hamilton, I truly believe that President Macron should issue an apology now to the Liverpool club, to Jurgen Klopp and to the Liverpool fans, given the completely false statements from his two ministers.
Honestly, the idea that Macron is ever going to apologise to the Brits, I mean, hell would freeze over first. It doesn't matter what they've done. He thinks that we should apologise for rescuing them in World War II, for goodness sake. And no, let's, don't forget Waterloo. It won't happen. It absolutely won't.
But it should happen.
Of course it should happen, and they've lied about it. But almost worse is the fact that the deputy mayor of the 12th arrondissement, which is where the Stade de France is, has apologised. Now, if he can see that it was wrong and he has issued an apology, why the hell can't Macron?
Well, indeed, because here's my issue.
He won't, though.
He won't. Of course he won't. Adam Brooks, here's my issue. The Liverpool fans are low-hanging fruit, aren't they? And France bought into the French government, I should say, brought into an easy stereotype. And it's despicable.
Yeah, I mean, look, let's not forget that the French police are known for beatings. Yeah. They're known for gassing people. Yeah. We had years of the Gilets jaunes that wasn't covered by the mainstream media. So us that are online, on Twitter, on social media, would have seen this sort of behaviour for many years. But your average media watcher will not have known how brutal their police can be. But, yeah, look, on Saturday night, I see the videos as they was happening. And you see kids crying, women crying, and it was so needless and so wrong, and it's easy to blame people that with fake tickets, and that does happen.
Well, and inflate the numbers. I mean, 30 to 40,000 fake tickets. If there'd been that number, that's half the capacity of the stadium.
But let's also admit that some Liverpool fans played up. Some, and it's going to happen.
Always going to
exactly
get some football fans that played up. But actually, James, I guess my point is that the French authorities didn't talk about the French locals who we saw climbing the fences. They didn't speak about the Madrid fans who also were caught in all of the issues. They simply spoke about Liverpool fans and English football clubs.
Yeah, I think that's tricky. And I lived in France. I speak French. I love France. But the French football clubs have a huge issue with hooliganism as well. It happens everywhere. So to pinpoint it on the UK, and similar to you, when I saw... I had to watch the game, and when I saw there was a delay,
Did you enjoy it?
I mean, I enjoyed the company. I'm looking at you, you weren't there. But I automatically presumed, there must be football fans getting carried away, and I saw everything on Twitter, and it is absolutely outrageous, but also dangerous, these bottlenecks environments. But I'm sorry, it happened. My partner was at the Euros in Wembley, and it happened there as well. People jumping fences, people putting food, but they know this stuff happens, so be organised.
Be ready.
And also... go down harder on the touts that are selling illegal tickets, but be prepared for when it happens. And tear gassing, like a pregnant woman, children, the fact that 2,700 Liverpool fans with tickets did not get in, it is absolutely outrageous.
Yeah, because, Christine Hamilton, I completely agree with Ashley that hooliganism we must stand against. And, of course, England has a dark history of that. But that wasn't what was going on here. Of course, you're always going to get very, very small pockets of fans who are a little bit drunk and are playing up. But this was an issue of French crowd control. And the problem
lack of crowd
well, of course, yeah. Of course. And they're boasting, by the way. The Interior Minister's boasting about the use of tear gas. I mean, it's so wrong.
As you say, British fans do have a bad history, but any excuse to knock the Brits, frankly, I'm perfectly certain.
And with their history of Hillsborough, and the tragedies that we've seen in the past, that would have brought back a lot of bad memories.
Many fans who were actually there on Saturday night were worried that they were about to witness...
Well, it looks scary. It looks out of control.
And for me, I think there's a massive issue. I think Ashley's right. There's a massive issue. This has to be sorted out. But for the French to immediately blame English clubs and Liverpool supporters, as I say, I've watched this story all week. I wanted to make sure the facts were established before I spoke about it on the show. But the facts are established now, and the French got it very, very wrong.
Agreed.
Ashley James, Adam Brooks, Christine Hamilton, thank you so much. My Superstar panel will be here all evening. But coming up, should the UK really forgive Prince Andrew? The Archbishop of Canterbury thinks that we should, but Ingrid Stewart, Editor-in-Chief of Majesty Magazine, and lawyer Brad Seeger are ready for a right royal rumble on this in the Clash a little bit later tonight at 9:35. I do want to know what you think on this. Details on the screen right now. But next, should American trans swimmer Leah Thomas be allowed to compete against British women in the Olympics? US superstar journalist Megyn Kelly dives into this big culture war debate next.
Hello, Alex Deakin here with your latest weather update from the Met Office. A fine day to come for the first of the bank holidays. For the vast majority, it's going to be dry and bright. Yes, a bit chilly first thing, but plenty of warm sunshine by the afternoon. The main exception will be Northern Ireland. This set of weather fronts just drifting in. It will bring more cloud here and a little bit of rain. But for most, we're under the influence of high pressure. Not many isobars on the chart, which means the winds are light, which means it is turning quite fresh out there. Temperatures falling, and it's also likely to turn a little misty. Even some fog patches possible over parts of eastern England through the early hours. Temperatures are tumbling. It is going to be a chilly start to Bank Holiday Thursday, well down into single figures. A touch of frost isn't completely impossible through the glens of Scotland. It will be a fine start, though, for most. Any morning mist and fog will clear very rapidly after dawn, and then plenty of sunshine for England, Wales, Scotland. Maybe one or two scattered showers across Scotland and northern England. And there's that weather front coming in, introducing more cloud for Northern Ireland and eventually some outbreaks of rain, although it may not get to Belfast till late in the day. Temperatures responding to that sunshine after a chilly start, much warmer than most of this week, into the low 20s across the south. It will feel cooler as that cloud and rain comes into Northern Ireland, and that's going to get more extensive through the evening and perhaps throw some showery rain into southwest Scotland, parts of northwest England as we head into Friday. Then Friday is a messy day, certainly in the west more cloud than Thursday, some showers for Wales, northwest England and Northern Ireland, maybe southwest England too. But again, for many central and eastern parts, and much of Scotland, most of the day will be dry and bright with some sunshine and again, quite a bit warmer than much of this week. Temperatures into the low 20s. A little cooler on Friday on some of those North Sea coast, a bit more of a breeze picking up here. Things get complicated for Saturday and Sunday. Much of the north staying fine and bright, but in the south, increasing chance of seeing some showers, particularly on Sunday.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV,
on radio, on digital.
Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices.
With honest and civilised conversation.
We're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join us for Ministry of Defence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was in fact a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers.
We're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, but I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Defence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Rod Little and Niall Gardner coming up, but now time for US media superstar Megyn Kelly. And as the trans athlete debate rages on here in the UK, the controversial figure who seemingly propelled the contentious issue to a whole new level has given her first sit-down interview to the Disney network ABC in America. Female trans swimmer Leah Thomas has been obliterating opponents in the pool for over a year now since transitioning from becoming a mediocre male competitor at university. Accused of having an unfair biological advantage against her smaller and slower rivals, Thomas was unrepentant when presented with expert analysis suggesting that her male genetics gave her an edge in the water. She also appeared to accuse more than a dozen of her worried competitors and their parents of being transphobic after they co-signed a letter expressing concerns at her involvement in female sport. Watch.
The women who signed the letter anonymously said that they absolutely supported your right to transition, but they simply think it's unfair for you to compete against cisgendered women.
You can't go halfway and be like, I support trans women and trans people, but only to a certain point.
Some medical experts say the effects of higher testosterone during male puberty may never be fully erased.
There is this concept of the legacy effects of testosterone, and that can't ever be zero. Should that eliminate or disqualify transgender women?
There's a lot of variation among cis female athletes. There's cis women who are very tall and very muscular and have more testosterone than another cis woman, and should that then also disqualify them?
Are there Olympics in your future?
It's been a goal of mine to swim at Olympic trials for a very long time, and I would love to see that through.
Megyn, so I found this interview a really difficult watch. I'm not going to lie. Of course, I have compassion for Leah Thomas and the very difficult journey that she has gone through, believing that she was born in the wrong body. But Leah Thomas, Megyn, doesn't seem to have any compassion to the female athletes who have trained for years and years and years to be the best in their sport, whose dreams she is shattering.
Oh, no. It's all about her. She's made that clear in the interviews that she has done. One with Sports Illustrated, now this one. It's all about her. This interview, she says, I'm just so happy now. It was amazing when I got to compete at the NCAAs. It was incredible. What an experience for you, not for the biological women whose spot you took, whose medals you took, when you should not have been racing against them because you are not a woman. There is a difference between a trans woman and a woman. And this isn't something most people run around highlighting night and day. But if you're going to make us explain why you don't belong swimming against the biological women, then we're going to have to talk reality. I'm happy to go along with your statement that you feel more identified with being a woman than you do with being a man. I'm happy to call you she and her and be respectful of your life choice. But if you're really going to make me say you're a woman, I won't in this context, because now you're trying to claim that there's no connection whatsoever between you and your 20 years as a man in a man's body. And that's not true. And I was willing to overlook it and not mention it and not bring it up and make you feel uncomfortable. But now that you're going to try to claim that you're an actual woman, that there's no difference between you and the women out there, we're going to have to talk turkey, because you're not a woman. There's a difference between trans women and biological women, and that's why this is such a fierce debate in the field of women's athletics. It's why gay and lesbian rights advocate Martina Navratilova has spoken out against this. It's why Caitlyn Jenner, who was born a man and is now living as a woman, and of course is an Olympic gold medal winner, has spoken out saying this is not fair. We're going to have to talk about reality, and reality is Leah Thomas is 6'3", still looks like a man more than she does a woman, has greater lung capacity, greater bone capacity, greater muscle capacity, larger feet, larger hands. I could go on. That cannot be fully mitigated. And that is why she killed the other women who are in this pool, the women who swam against her. So I'm happy she feels better, but her happiness is not the only happiness that matters. And if she wants to talk about happiness, she wants to talk about fairness. And if that community wants to have that discussion, then let's do it. But it has to go both ways.
I completely agree. And the issue is, Meghan, just by you saying that, the trans extremists, as I now call them, will say, you're a TERF, you're transphobic. Well, I'm sorry, I now say to hell with your insults, because actually this is too important a debate now, given that the very future of female sport, I think, is under threat.
I don't care what they call me. I've been called worse. And I'm doing just fine. And I will speak on behalf of the millions of people who feel the same way I do, but have a job they could lose or too afraid to say it. And I understand that. Thankfully, you're in a position, and so am I, where we can speak the truth. Yeah. I'm happy to be respectful. But if we're really going to push it, right, if we're really going to go there, then let's go there. If your position is, and how did she say it? Trans women are not a threat to women's sports. That's how she put it. You don't speak on behalf of all women, Leah Thomas. I'm a biological woman, a cis woman, and I say different. I say you are a threat to women's sports, you in particular. Maybe not all women. Maybe a little boy who went on puberty suppressors and then went directly over to cross-gender hormones could wind up in a place physically where that person resembled physically more of a woman. But that's not Leah Thomas. And she is a threat to women's sports because there is no way most biological women could compete against her. We already have large speculation that she threw the couple of races that she didn't crush just to make it look like, okay, the others have a chance. So she doesn't get to speak on behalf of all women. And here's the thing, Dan. What you see now is Leah Thomas's name is going to be on the NCAA leaderboard forever. For as long as her record stands. And it now could go on an Olympic medal and in the Olympic records, potentially, depending on what happens, under the women's category. And yet she suffered none of what a female athlete would have suffered for those first 20 years. She went through none of it. Has she ever gone swimming in the pool during the middle of her menstrual period? It's not that easy. I'm not a professional athlete, but I can tell you it's not a joy. Has she ever tried to compete against other women, understanding that she's the smallest one in the pool? No, she hasn't. Even as a guy, she was 6'3" and she had physical advantages. That's why, look, she was 554th as a man. She's number 1 as a woman. So she doesn't get to speak for us, and she doesn't get to be on our leaderboard, and she doesn't get to get the accolades that come with being number 1 as a woman, because built into that is an understanding of what your life entailed prior to the point you got into that pool.
I completely agree. And Meghan, when she was presented with the science during this interview, it didn't make any difference to her, because what a lot of people don't know is that all Leah Thomas has actually gone through is 1 year of HRT. 1 year. She has had no surgery. She maintains male genitalia. And if you speak to the scientists, Meghan, they are categorical that 1 year of HRT doesn't go anywhere near overturning male puberty.
It's a joke, Dan, and it's not just Leah Thomas. I mean, first of all, the NCAA has been disgraceful through this whole thing, and they punted the ball to USA Swimming, and so the swimming officials said, yeah, that's unfair, we're changing the rules. And then the NCAA stepped in and said, oh, not this year. No, they created a special exception, basically, for Leah. But it's not just Leah at the NCAA level, the college level. It's also high schoolers in America. I interviewed 2 young runners in Connecticut, 2 young girls who had been winning. They'd been coming in 1, 2, 1, 2, and they had to run against runners who were running in the boys' races the previous year who didn't have to do and didn't do any hormone therapy. They just changed lanes. I mean, literally and figuratively, and started crushing these girls. There was no requirement of transition. We just decided to pretend that their femurs are the same and their muscular, structure is the same. Their feet are the same. Their legs are the same. It's a lie. All right. And it's also a lie to say that trans women are the same as biological women. And most polite people will overlook that fact unless you make us say it out loud. And that's what Leah Thomas is doing. There is a difference, and it's important when it comes to female athletics.
Absolutely. It really is. And if you love women's sport, and like I do actually, and you appreciate that it's different to male sport and it needs protecting, unfortunately, the feelings of Leah Thomas's and, as you say, Megan, her happiness, it doesn't actually really matter in this discussion.
No, and just one final point, Dan. The unhappiness of the women who are on the team with her got so bad that they wrote an anonymous letter to University of Pennsylvania. You know what Penn said? This is an Ivy League university. They said, we'd be happy to put you in touch with campus therapists so you can work through your feelings. Why don't you put Leah Thomas in touch with the campus therapists, not the 16 teammates who are there legitimately, who quietly and under fear of punishment because they did it anonymously, finally found a way to speak up.
Indeed. Indeed. What a shocking situation. Megyn Kelly. Brilliant analysis as ever. The star host of the Megyn Kelly Show, by the way, which you can find on Sirius XM, YouTube, and as a very good podcast. Now, coming up, does the Tory party need to reacquaint itself with its Thatcherite roots? And should Britain be learning from the great Iron Lady rather than desecrating her statue? Former Thatcher aide and director of the Margaret Thatcher Centre for Freedom, Niall Gardner, joins me in The Outsider soon. But first, is it time to forgive our Queen's favourite son, Prince Andrew? The Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Welby, seems to think so. Ingrid Seward, editor-in-chief of Majesty magazine, dukes it out with lawyer Rad Seeger next in The Clash. I want to know what you think on this too. Email me, dan@gbnews.uk. Tweet me using the handle @GBNews. We've got a poll running there too. The results straight after the break.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV, on radio, on digital.
Absolutely everywhere. We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices. With honest and civilised conversation. We're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join us for Ministry of Defence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was in fact a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
We're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, but I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Defence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Niall Gardner and Rod Liddell on the way, but now it's time for The Clash. And the Archbishop of Canterbury has claimed that Prince Andrew is seeking to make amends after settling his sex abuse case out of court. Justin Welby told ITV News that the Duke of York is hoping for forgiveness from the public as he called for the UK to be a more open and forgiving society.
Prince Andrew, I think we all have to step back a bit. He's seeking to make amends, and I think that's a very good thing.
This is outrageous. So, what do you think? Is the Archbishop of Canterbury right that we should forgive Prince Andrew? Controversial one, this. I'm fascinated in your thoughts. Dan@gbnews.uk. Tweet me @GBNews. We'll bring you the results of that poll shortly. But to help you make your mind up, I'm joined by top lawyer Rad Seeger and editor-in-chief of Majesty magazine, Ingrid Seward. So, Ingrid, you think in the spirit of forgiving, the spirit of this Platinum Jubilee, the Archbishop made a fair point?
Well, I would far be it from me to disagree with an Archbishop. I think he later said that he wasn't particularly meaning Prince Andrew, but he was
so he did name him, didn't he?
He was talking in the spirit of forgiveness. And I think I'm right in saying that the word Jubilee is about forgiveness somewhere way back in time. And I think what he was trying to say is we are a very unkind society, and we know that's probably because of social media. And he was thinking this is 70 years for the Queen, and let's just go gentle on her favourite son. I think that's what he meant in spirit, but he said it in such a way that it didn't sound like that at all.
Radzig, you are prepared to strongly disagree with the Archbishop, though, aren't you? You think the statement was totally wrong.
I think it's totally wrong and totally out of place. And I think we have to, as a society, look at this from the perspective of the victims. And I disagree with him fundamentally. I think we are a very forgiving society. We have one of the fairest legal systems in the world that has leniency at its heart. But the way to forgiveness, Dan, and I agree with the Archbishop in this respect, we should be forgiving, but the way to do that is to be held accountable. And let's bring this back to the facts. Andrew still stands accused of committing some serious acts of indecency on young women. He's wanted by the U.S. prosecuting authorities. He continues to evade them. We know for a fact that he's visited Jeffrey Epstein's island on at least 4 occasions. I personally have met several victims who have pointed the finger at Andrew. So, look, there is a path to redemption, but expecting us, the great British public, the intelligent British public, to just walk on by because it's the 70th anniversary of the Queen ascending to the throne is just not going to happen. And I find it offensive that people seem to be inviting us to do that just because it's the Jubilee.
Ingrid, isn't that a fair point? Because I feel like Prince Andrew had a golden opportunity to clear his name by taking the Virginia Giuffre case and going all the way and saying, no, I'll be able to prove that what you're saying is wrong. He bottled it. He settled. And as Rad says, that hasn't given us the opportunity to make a judgment. All we can see is that very dodgy Newsnight interview where you have to admit he didn't cover himself in glory.
He certainly didn't. And I have to agree with Rad. And I have to agree with you, Dan, I'm afraid, as well. But that, of course, Andrew hasn't settled the case. His family have settled for him in the way of providing the money to pay off Virginia Giuffre. But I don't think that Andrew's actually said anything about wanting to make redemption. But I think that if Andrew does anything at all, he's going to have to do it very, very subtly and very quietly. I don't think he's trying to come back into the royal family. I think he realises that is over.
Oh, I think he is. I think he's absolutely desperate to come back. Do you remember just after Prince Philip's death, he insisted on giving that on-camera statement. Then he was very much behind walking the Queen into Westminster Abbey at the event not so long ago. Rad, I think he absolutely believes that he should be back on the balcony.
Look, I think, when you don't stand up and answer the charges or the accusations, there's an awful stench that follows Andrew wherever it goes. And shoveling a huge wedge of cash under a negotiating table to try and buy off silence just isn't going to work. Ultimately, look, it's up to the Queen. But the moment I see Andrew on the telly, and I've been taking soundings locally where I live, and I know millions of people, I'm gonna switch that telly off the moment I see them. And there goes the goodwill that we all so fondly hold for the monarchy. There is just an awful stench about this, Dan.
Ingrid, we are going to see him over the next few days, aren't we, at the service of Thanksgiving, I believe, on Friday morning. He will attend that, but he won't be on the balcony tomorrow, for example, at Trooping the Colour.
He won't be on the balcony tomorrow, and he won't be in the carriage procession. But I do feel, I think Rad's saying that, well, we allow the Queen to hold the arm of her favourite son. I think we are being a bit unkind to the Queen. And I think the royal family were behind the idea that as Andrew had nothing to do, he could, look after his mum. And I think it was his father's service of remembrance. And I think it was quite right that he escorted her there. And, she feels comfortable with him. But the Queen, of course, is really, really sensitive to public opinion. And there was an outcry. There was a lot of people saying, how could this happen? And I don't think we will see very much of Andrew at all, because the Queen, as head of state, is sensitive to what her subjects feel.
Brad, I've been speaking to my royal sources over the past few weeks, and they're very clear on this. The Queen and senior members of the royal family believe Prince Andrew is innocent. In fact, these royal sources told me that they feel far more comfortable hanging out and being in the same room as Prince Andrew than they do Prince Harry and Meghan, because they don't believe that Prince Andrew has done anything wrong. They believe he is innocent.
And Dan, that's absolutely a fundamental principle in our country, that you're innocent until proven otherwise. The problem that we have here is not so much in the court of law, it's in the court of public opinion. But the way to answer charges, and you and I would do this if anybody accused us of this, would not go on Newsnight and give a car crash of an interview. It would be to get to court and be judged by your peers. That's the way we do things. We don't go on Newsnight to try and silence the public, and we don't run away from authorities when they want to question us.
And Ingrid, he was never prepared to do it, was he? He was never prepared to speak to the FBI.
He wasn't, but I presume Andrew isn't the brightest spark, and I presume he was doing exactly what his lawyers told him to do. And they probably never foresaw the weight of public opinion against him. And I think that's one of the things that has gone slightly awry here. But I do agree with you, Dan, and I've also heard the same as you, that the royal family, and especially the Queen, believes that he is innocent.
Yes.
And he could well be completely innocent. But what he's not innocent of is this sort of arrogance that he has. And I think that's what really gets people, is his sense of entitlement and his arrogance, that he didn't even sort of apologise to Giuffre and potentially the other girls that,
Well, he didn't even apologise for his friendship with Epstein to begin with in the BBC interview. He said he didn't regret it, which felt completely unbelievable to me. But Rad, at the same time, there are two sides to this story, and I am prepared to hear from both sides. So Lady Victoria Harvey, a friend of Prince Andrew, has been on this show before, and she absolutely insists that she has proof that Virginia Giuffre is not telling the truth.
She succeeded in her claim against him. You don't hand over a wedge of cash if you're totally innocent. You and I wouldn't do it. We would want our day in court. And look, the path to redemption is to head to New York, speak to the authorities. It's not what your lawyers advise you to do. The man's an adult.
I agree with that.
And, whether he's intelligent or not, I can't comment on. But look, if we're talking about what the Archbishop said, which was being a forgiving society, I disagree with him. I think we are. But you have to be held accountable. And if accusations are made against you, there's a place to go and defend yourself. And that's either cooperating with the authorities or ultimately in court if necessary. Until that point, as I say, this awful smell is going to follow him forever and a day.
Ingrid, I guess the one counterpoint to that is that a lot of people think Prince Andrew settled the case for the sake of his mother's health and reputation. Because remember, if this case had gone ahead, it would have potentially overshadowed somewhat these Platinum Jubilee celebrations. Do you think that's one reason why the Queen is so prepared to publicly stand by Andrew?
I absolutely agree with you, Dan. I think that Andrew was under a great deal of pressure from the other members of the family. Remember, he's out of the royal family.
Charles
now.
And William in particular, right?
Well, I think in particular it was his older brother Charles who said, Andrew, you might want your day in court, because he said he wanted his day in court.
He did.
You might want it, but it's going to be too damaging to the institution of the monarchy, and that's what we're all about. It's not about you or me or Princess Anne. It's about the institution of the monarchy, and that's what we've got to protect. And if it means you can't have your day in court, tough. You're just going to have to learn to live with it.
Fascinating conversation. Thank you so much. That's Royal Expert, Editor-in-Chief of Majesty Magazine. She's got a very busy few days ahead, Ingrid Seward, and top lawyer Rad Seeger. So who do you agree with on this? Well, Mary on Twitter says forgiveness is important but requires the perpetrator to be truly repentant, not just buying off trouble. He has shown no remorse. Andrew on Twitter says the Archbishop of Canterbury isn't fit for purpose. Prince Andrew has shown no remorse because he doesn't know the difference between right and wrong. And from Stuart, Justin Welby is wrong on everything, as far as I can see. And your verdict is now in. Just 16% of you agree with Justin Welby that we should forgive Prince Andrew. 84% of you say we shouldn't forgive the disgraced Duke. That interests me, actually, because when we've discussed this on the show before, I've had a very, very strong sense that many of you feel like Prince Andrew has been found guilty in the court of public opinion, even though he isn't guilty of any crimes. That's a fascinating result. Coming up, are the wet Tory MPs submitting letters of no confidence bad for Britain? My superstar panel and I debate whether the risk of Starmer stealing the keys to Downing Street with Sturgeon and the Lib Dems and the Wings, by the way, is just too great. Is that risk too great? That's the media buzz after 10. But first, as the statue of our first female Prime Minister, Margaret Thatcher, is desecrated by lefty cowards, I asked, does Britain need to celebrate the 11 years of Thatcherism? And do the Tory party of today need to get back in touch with their Thatcherite past? Well, the Iron Lady's former aide and the director of the Margaret Thatcher Centre for Freedom, Niall Gardner, he joins me live next.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV, on radio, on digital.
Absolutely everywhere. We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices.
With honest and civilised conversation. We're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was, in fact, a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
We're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, but I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
A first look at tomorrow's front pages coming up. But first, Niall Gardner is tonight's outsider. Now, since being erected more than 2 weeks ago, the statue of Baroness Margaret Thatcher has repeatedly been vandalised by sets of left-wing and Marxist zealots. Take a look at some of the disgusting desecration of the memorial. True to form, the Iron Lady stood firm in face of attack. The 3-metre-high bronze statue looked resplendent as it was officially unveiled in her hometown of Grantham yesterday. Mayor Graham Gill did the honours, unveiling a quote from Maggie reading, "I have fought a good fight, I have finished my course, I have kept the faith." One notable audience member was 1922 committee chair Sir Graham Brady, who of course is the recipient of the letters of no confidence in Boris Johnson. Currently 28 Tory MPs have publicly called for the PM to resign. However, with an embattled Tory party fighting on several fronts, I believe what the government requires is stability, and they would do well to learn from the traditional Conservative values that Mrs Thatcher embodied so strongly. Niall Gardner, of course, former advisor to Margaret Thatcher, you remain one of her protectors of her legacy on earth. Isn't it about time the current Tory leadership looked for Thatcher? Because I think one of the main problems with Boris at the moment is that he seems to have lost touch with what it means to be a true Conservative.
Well, thanks very much, Dan, for having me on the show tonight here in London. And just firstly, in response to the disgraceful attacks on Margaret Thatcher's statue, this is basically an example of the moral bankruptcy of the left here. Margaret Thatcher won 3 general elections in a row. She was a lady of tremendous principle, courage and conviction. She liberated Britain from socialism. The socialists lost. They resent that. And now you have far less left activists attacking her statue. It's a further demonstration of how the left have lost the war of ideas here. They're resorting to vandalism.
Indeed, because look, I'm not into identity politics, and neither was Margaret Thatcher. So to me, it's almost irrelevant that she was a female Prime Minister. But can you just imagine if the first female Prime Minister of this country came from a left-wing party and didn't have a statue at Westminster because the authorities bottled it? It just wouldn't happen. And by the way, I think we should note the Labour Party still haven't had a female leader.
Yes.
And we're in 2022.
Exactly. And as you say, Margaret Thatcher would have fundamentally rejected identity politics. She would have fought against the woke left. And of course, the woke left fundamentally hate everything Margaret Thatcher stood for. And she was a real titan on the world stage. She was a great champion of freedom and liberty. And of course, the socialists hate freedom and liberty, and that's why they're attacking her. And with regard to the state of the Conservative Party today, and Boris Johnson's leadership, I really do think that Boris needs to return fully, wholeheartedly to the Thatcherite roots of the modern day Conservative Party. We need more Thatcherite policies here. We need limited government, lower taxes, deregulation. We need a very different approach on the economy, I think, to be taken by the British government. And I think that Boris's position would be significantly strengthened if he shifted the policies towards Thatcherite principles and ideals. And I hope that Boris Johnson remains as the Prime Minister. He delivered Brexit. He's shown outstanding leadership over the Ukraine crisis. He's the right man at the right moment when it comes to really delivering for Britain. He's also, I think, a deeply patriotic figure. And I've had the pleasure of hosting Boris in Washington on a number of occasions.
Which is where you're based.
Yes, that's right. And I think he is a very strong leader. But I do think that Boris Johnson needs to really lead the Conservative Party from the right, based upon solid Conservative Thatcherite principles. He needs to be cutting taxes, reducing government spending, and getting big government off the backs of people, basically. So we don't need to see the Conservative Party drifting in any way leftwards. That's not going to help the Prime Minister either, actually.
Well, I know, because we've just seen in Australia, haven't we? Their Liberal Party, which is the equivalent of the Tories, tried to compete with the Labour Party, and it ended up with them out of government. Scott Morrison voted out. And I feel at the moment, even though I'm completely with you, I think Boris Johnson is the right man for the job. He is a proven winner at the ballot box. I don't think his policies at the moment are proven winners. It's almost like he's trying to outbid the Labour Party at times.
Yeah, it would be a complete disaster if the Conservatives shift to the left, if they adopt the policies of the left. And when Conservative parties do that, they always lose, because they lose the grassroots, the beating heart of their own party. Conservative voters will abandon the Conservatives if they adopt socialist-style policies. This never, ever succeeds. And as Margaret Thatcher says, you really have to listen to the beating heart of Middle England, because I do believe that, you know, Great Britain is at heart a conservative nation that believes in conservative ideals and principles, the ideals of liberty and freedom. And when those are abandoned, it's a very dangerous path for any Prime Minister to be taking. And I do hope that the Prime Minister will look at the example of Margaret Thatcher and see how she successfully led Great Britain. He's a big admirer of Lady Thatcher. I hope he follows her beliefs, ideals, principles, and example.
Well, just finally on that note, he also needs to stare down the unions like she did,
absolutely.
right? Because the RMT threatening months and months of chaos, essentially.
Precisely. The socialist trade unions will do their best to undermine and even destroy the British economy. And the Prime Minister needs to stand up to the unions. He needs to follow Margaret Thatcher's example. And he really needs to reject socialist attempts to undermine this truly great nation of Britain.
Noel Gardner, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Brilliant
Thanks
to
very
have you here. Enjoy the Platinum Jubilee.
I definitely will do. Thank you.
Weekend in London. It's 10 p.m. I'm Dan Wootton. Tonight, as Boris Johnson sends a message to the Partygate-obsessed media and Tory wets threatening to topple him, correctly stating that quitting wouldn't be in the best interest of the country.
Just cannot see how actually it would be responsible right now, given everything that is going on.
Our Tory rebels today branded vain and irresponsible by the Daily Mail equally as bad for Britain. We'll dive into that next with my superstar panel, the media personality and writer Christine Hamilton, entrepreneur and activist Adam Brooks, and broadcaster Ashley James. As Tartan warrior scheming Sturgeon defends splashing £20 million Indie Ref 2 already during a cost of living crisis, the new chairman of the Scottish Tories, Craig Hoy, joins me as he steps up the counterattack against the dangerously deluded First Minister. He'll deliver a dollop of common sense north of the border at 10:15. And I say it's time to neuter the scooter. As crash injuries from e-scooters quadruple in just a year, I'm asking, are these death machines just too dangerous for British roads? My panel, one of whom has a tragic connection actually to the e-scooter controversy, are riled and ready to debate these damn contraptions at 10:30. And from one menace to another, who remembers this sickening clip? Oh my goodness, it still makes me so angry. Privileged millionaire footballer Kurt Zouma was sentenced for his shameful animal abuse today, but I'll explain why what he received really isn't good enough. And as superstar podcaster Joe Rogan speaks out on his brush with the vicious cancel culture mob.
The left has gone so far left, so radical, that the right are the ones that are celebrating comedians and celebrating Chappelle.
Is Spotify's £100 million man right that it's now the whiny left who are the proponents of censoring free speech? All that and much more in the media buzz throughout the next hour. And I'm looking forward to this. Will Rod Liddell bow to the king of Inkland as Virgin Atlantic becomes the first UK airline to allow staff to display their tattoos? Our columnist extraordinaire Anne Blank Canvas meets Britain's most inked man in what's sure to be a very colourful uncancelled at 10:40. I'll also crown my greatest Britain and Union jackass before the end of the show and bring you a first look at tomorrow's newspaper front pages hot off the presses too. But first, the latest news headlines with Polly Middlehurst at 10.
Dan, thank you. Good evening. The top story tonight on GB News. Johnny Depp says he feels at peace after winning his multi-million-pound US defamation lawsuit against his ex-wife Amber Heard. After 6 weeks of testimony, the jury unanimously found Miss Heard did defame Mr. Depp in her 2018 article in which she claimed she was the victim of domestic abuse. The jury awarded Johnny Depp £8 million in compensatory damages and £4 million in punitive damages. Here's what happened in court earlier on.
Do you find that Mr. Depp has proven all the elements of defamation? Answer, yes. Has Mr. Depp proven by a greater weight of the evidence that, question, the statement was made or published by Ms. Heard? Answer, yes. Question, the statement was about Mr. Depp. Answer, yes. Question, the statement was false. Answer, yes. Question, the statement has a defamatory implication about Mr. Depp. Answer, yes. Question, the defamatory implication was designed and intended by Ms. Heard. Answer, yes.
Well, speaking after the verdict, Johnny Depp, who wasn't in court and was watching the verdict remotely from the UK, thanked the jury, saying they've given him his life back. Amber Heard has also been speaking after the verdict, and she said the disappointment she feels is beyond words. Well, in other news today, the US president has announced a new £560 million military package for Ukraine. That's going to include advanced long-range rocket systems. The Kremlin's criticised the move, saying it'll widen the conflict and increase the risk of direct confrontation with Washington. The US Secretary of State says Ukraine has assured the US they won't use the weapons against targets on Russian soil. And Scotland have lost 3-1 to Ukraine in their World Cup playoff semi-final. It means Ukraine have kept alive their dream of reaching the World Cup finals in their first game since Russia invaded their country. They'll face Wales on Sunday in the playoff final in Cardiff. The winner will go on to play in the finals in Qatar in November. And the final rehearsals for the Queen's Platinum Jubilee show are well underway outside Buckingham Palace this evening. Headlining at the Platinum Party at the Palace extravaganza are music stars Diana Ross, Queen, Rod Stewart and Duran Duran. Her Majesty will also symbolically lead the lighting of the Principal Jubilee Beacon at the start of a chain of more than 3,500 flaming tributes being lit across the UK to celebrate her 70-year reign. You're up to date on TV, online and on your radio via DAB+. This is GB News. More now from Dan Wootton tonight.
Tomorrow's News Tonight now in our Media Buzz. Just one front page in so far, and it is 70 images of the Queen to mark the 70 years of her reign. A special newspaper Jubilee front page tomorrow. Her Majesty's unprecedented milestone is set to be marked by a weekend of partying. And do remember, we're here tomorrow night, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News with all of your favourites and lots of Platinum Jubilee coverage for the bank holiday too. So don't worry, we will still be with you tomorrow night. Back with me now, it's my superstar panel, the writer and media personality Christine Hamilton, the businessman and activist Adam Brooks and the broadcaster Ashley James. Now, a bullish Boris Johnson has declared it would be irresponsible for him to resign as Britain battles multiple crises. In an interview today with the internet forum Mumsnet, the PM said leaving his post is not an option in the wake of a cost of living crisis and war in Europe.
I thought about all these questions a lot, as you can imagine, and I just cannot see how actually it would be responsible right now, given everything that is going on, simply to abandon the project on which I embarked to level up.
A lot of our...
Now, Dominic Raab had earlier in the day denied that Bojo will face a leadership vote as soon as next week, dismissing the left-wing media speculation as Westminster froth. The Deputy Prime Minister emphatically shot down the notion that a no-confidence vote or an early election are imminent, amid fears among the rebels that Boris could respond to an attempted coup by sending Britain back to the polls.
No.
Why?
I just don't see... allow me to just give you my view. I think the Westminster bubble and village whips this stuff up. I'm not saying it's not serious and significant, but we've dealt with all of those issues. The Prime Minister's dealt with all those issues.
Are you suggesting that potentially we could have an early election?
No.
Definitely not.
I think it's very unlikely.
OK.
And I think, by the way, when the election comes, we'll win it.
Now, a blistering editorial in the Daily Mail today accused the turncoat Tories of doing the opposition's work and setting the country on a calamitous course. I want to share it with you, actually, because it's so powerful. The newspaper wrote in a leading article, those Tory MPs agitating for Mr Johnson to go must stop and take a deep breath. What are they doing? It only serves the interests of Labour, the anti-Brexit establishment and the Tory-hating BBC. Destabilising the country now will only have dire consequences, market turmoil, a possible general election and eventually the very real prospect of a socialist government which would lead us to ruin. The Mail reminds these Tory rebels that Mrs Thatcher's demise led ultimately to 13 years of Labour rule and so asks them with all sincerity, are you so vain and irresponsible that you would risk imposing such a catastrophe on your country? Christine Hamilton, I think these Tory rebels are bad for Britain. Do you?
Absolutely, and I was very interested to hear, but not surprised, what Niall said earlier. 100% agree with him. They're mad. They're like turkeys voting for Christmas. They seem to be drunk on their own self-importance. And what is interesting is that they're coming from all wings of the party, sort of, you know, roughly half Brexiteers, Remainers, the lefties, the righties, this, that and the other. The longer a Prime Minister remains in office, the more he has disgruntled people that he has never promoted, the people he's sacked, etc.
Yeah, they all hate Boris personally.
Right. But, I mean, it would be madness. And supposing we did end up with an election, why would you vote for the Tories, who are basically, at the moment, they're the Labour Party in drag, aren't they? Why wouldn't you vote for the real thing? They're overtaxing, they're, you know, etc. You know, all the eco-lunacy. I think we would probably lose an election. So Boris isn't going to call one. He's not mad. And he would win a vote of confidence. So I think these people are just grandstanding and they need to be put back in their box.
Well, Adam Brooks, the thing is, that's why I'm now coming around to the idea that actually maybe let's just do the confidence vote, get it out the way, because then Boris is safe for a year. I think he would win the confidence vote. Because what I'm sick of, Adam, is this constant drip distraction. The Westminster Village, they're not talking about anything that's important. So we've had 6 months now of this Partygate, and it's still going on. I thought it was meant to end after the Sue Gray report.
We've got the cost of living crisis, the energy crisis.
A war.
A war. Businesses are in turmoil, and I know that because I'm getting messaged daily from people in my industry that are on the ropes. We do not need this distraction. At the end of the day, I've got a lot of respect for some of the names on that list. Steve Baker, Mark Harper. I've spoke to guys. Yeah, I've spoke to them through Brexit. I've spoke to some of them, you know, through COVID, and we would have been restricted in December and January if it wasn't for some of these people on the list.
Yes.
But let's not, you know, there's different agendas going on here. The EU lovers that are on that list want Boris gone. He stands in the way, you know, of a true Brexit or
Look, Boris
you know,
isn't perfect, Adam.
No.
But sometimes it's better the devil you know. Because I'm sorry, if we're facing a Boris Johnson or Jeremy Hunt premiership, I'm going to want Boris Johnson. And Jeremy Hunt is currently the bookies' favourite of Boris.
It's terrifying. I mean, I've tweeted numerous times about Jeremy Hunt.
The lockdown zealot.
I couldn't vote for Jeremy Hunt. It's
The
basically
zero COVID
it's
zealot.
like Starmer with a blue tie.
Yeah.
You know, it's horrifying.
Ashley James, you think Boris Johnson would lose a confidence vote?
I don't know if he would lose, but let's be honest, the only reason we are still talking about this is because
the
of
media.
his actions.
The media's obsession.
And even if we can't stop talking
Ashley,
about
sorry,
it now.
I just want to pick
Hang on a minute.
Ashley, what did he do? No, but what you sorry, you've just said his actions. So
Partygate.
Yeah, but his actions as part of Partygate, though, let's just be very clear on this, because I've read the entire Sue Gray report and we've seen the police find. So his actions, his personal actions, the only thing that amounted to a break in the COVID laws was being presented with a birthday cake between meetings in the middle of the afternoon.
No. And he was a leader. He went into those environments. He said to Mumsnet today, who I thought did a brilliant job of holding him to account.
They were tough,
he said,
weren't they?
Yeah, go on the mums. He said, I was simply doing what I thought was right for a leader to boost morale. Women had to attend scans alone and find out they miscarried. Partners had to wait outside while women laboured alone. I know that we've talked about this before, but
it's appalling.
This is not going away because he now faces a parliamentary inquiry into whether he deliberately lied and misled lawmakers. He lied to the Queen. He was not a leader in that environment. And so it's not the end of it because this is going to continue to be talked about. And for me, it's not about Brexit.
So what changes?
It's not about the left, it's not about the right, but integrity is a hugely important part of British politics, and he no longer has the moral authority to lead. I'm sorry, it is not an excuse.
Well, forgive me, but I thought you were suggesting that Boris has somehow done something else to keep this going. He hasn't. He's been fined. Presumably he's paid that fine. Yes, we've got these other reports coming down, but in the meantime, for God's sake, let's get on, as Adam says, with fighting the war, helping Ukraine. I mean, Ukraine The Ukrainians are out there dying for us. They are defending the liberties that we hold dear. They're on the
Someone
front
else
line.
could do that as well. And also,
don't
let's
want the
talk about the
disruption
cost
of
of
a
living
leadership
crisis.
Hold on, you've got to remember.
The Tories' response to the cost of living crisis. Lee Anderson said they should learn how to cook. Rachel McLean said earn more money, take on more hours, move to a better paid job. George Eustace said...
what's wrong with
buy own name brands? Jackie Doyle Price, rent out your granny annex as if everyone has a granny annex. They are out of touch, and I'm sorry.
So are Labour.
What is wrong with suggesting that people who actually don't know how to cook might learn to do some simple...
I actually think what Lee Anderson
which
said...
they will find much
I actually
cheaper.
thought... I completely agree, Christine.
Absolutely.
And I thought what Lee
Very
Anderson said
sensible.
was brave, it was sensible, he stood up for it,
So
and he's the sort...
patronising.
I'm sorry, he's a single dad, actually, who used to work in a coal mine, who spent years and years and years struggling to feed his family. So this is not some
Tory
sort of
toff.
Eton-educated Tory
No,
toff.
not a
Exactly.
Tory toff.
Now, look, I want to move on because he went from a glittering career kicking footballs to shamefully booting his poor cat around the kitchen of his mansion. West Ham star Kurt Zuma was finally sentenced for his vile antics today, which shocked animal lovers, including me, as a cat owner. Oh, my goodness. It's just sickening. And Zuma, do you know he earns £125,000 a week and was given just 180 hours community service and ordered to pay £9,000 court costs after pleading guilty to animal cruelty. Now, for the record, £9,000, yes, a lot of money for you or me. But for him, that's around 3 hours' work. More outrageously, Zuma was banned for keeping cats for 5 years. 5 years. Is that it? Tonight, West Ham, who I think have not been great during this, and they are my club, but they haven't been great, said Zuma had previously apologised for the scandal and was hoping to move on. Meanwhile, the RSPCA, who brought the prosecution against Zuma and his laughing brother who filmed the attack, said the poor Bengal cat had been rehomed. Let's be honest here. Kurt Zuma has been let off incredibly lightly, becoming the latest in a long line of privileged footballers who prove there is something fundamentally wrong with our professional system. Football clubs wrap these millionaire players in cotton wool from a young age, and as a result, they have absolutely no idea how to behave themselves in the real world. Nothing less than a lifetime ban on keeping any animals would have sufficed for Kurt Zuma. And I pity the next poor kitty that ends up in the clutches of this cruel animal abuser when his 5 years are up. Ashley James, Adam Brooks, Christine Hamilton, do stand by, because coming up, as crashes and injuries from e-scooters nearly quadruple in just a year, I'm asking whether these killing machines are just too dangerous for Britain's roads. My superstar panel and I will debate if it's time to neuter the scooter when the media buzz continues. We'll have more of those newspaper front pages on the way too. But next, will Sturgeon ever be stopped? As she defends splashing £20 million on Indie Ref 2 during a cost of living crisis, new chairman of the Scottish Tories, Craig Hoy, joins me as he steps up the counter-attack against the dangerously deluded First Minister. He's live next.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV.
On radio, on digital.
Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices.
With honest and civilised conversation.
We're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join us for Ministry of Defence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was in fact a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
We're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, but I'm just helping it.
Join us for Ministry of Defence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Welcome back. Now, despite an ongoing cost of living crisis and presiding over a projected £3.5 billion deficit, scheming Sturgeon is prepared to fork out an outrageous £20 million on preparations for another futile independence referendum. In a spending review published yesterday, the Scottish Government announced that many public services could see their funding slashed over the coming years, with schools, universities, the police and councils all set to suffer. However, she miraculously found the cash for her beloved Indie Ref 2, which she's pushing to happen by the end of next year. And hilariously, Sturgeon has called the sum a, quote, good investment, ignoring the fact that a recent YouGov poll showed no progress has been made on this issue since 2014, with the same percentage of Scots still saying they would stay in the Union as the first referendum. But the counterattack against Sturgeon's stranglehold on Scotland has begun, led by the Scottish Tory Party's new chairman, Craig Hoy, who intends to stand up for Scotland's silent majority. He joins me now. So, Craig, how on earth can Nicola Sturgeon defend spending £20 million on Indie Ref 2 already in the middle of a cost of living crisis?
And it is frankly bizarre. If you ever wanted evidence that Nicola Sturgeon and the Scottish nationalists are now living in a parallel universe, we got this yesterday. On the same day, they came forward and announced they're going to have to cut £1 billion from policing, from education, from councils, from tourism, from universities. They managed to magic up £20 million for another independence referendum that, as you correctly said, only 29% of Scots actually want, and less than 1/3 of nationalists actually want next year. These are the bizarre, misplaced priorities that we've come to expect from the SNP. And despite that fact, they've actually now got £7 billion more than they were expecting in 2018. But because of the fact that they're wasting £250 million on ferries and a whole number of bizarre SNP misplaced priorities and the incompetent running of the Scottish tax system, they're now facing a £1 billion shortfall next year and a £3.5 billion shortfall identified by the Institute for Fiscal Studies. This is Sturgeonomics, and it is crazy.
So what are the Tories going to do in terms of Indie Ref 2? Because she can talk about holding it all she wants. She can spend her tens of millions of pounds. But presumably, you're in government in Westminster, you're going to say, we're not recognising this result.
Exactly. These are not the people's priorities. We said last time around, quite clearly, we said that it was a once-in-a-lifetime generation, a once-in-a-lifetime poll. That's what they said.
Well, they said
had it in 2014. Yeah, they had it in 2014. We accepted the terms of that referendum on the basis that it was once in a generation. In my experience, this is not a generation. There are far more priorities, far bigger priorities, as we come out of the COVID pandemic. Scotland's competitiveness is much poorer than the rest of the UK. Our health service is in crisis. The Scottish Government have ditched their target to try and close the attainment gap here because they were failing. And what does Nicola Sturgeon want to talk about? Sowing more division through another independence referendum. Independence, don't forget, would put our jobs, our prosperity, our public services, our pensions, our national security and our national identity at risk. And as we come out of the COVID pandemic, that's the First Minister's number one priority. Really? I mean, I think Nicola Sturgeon needs to have a good, long, hard look at the country. She's been governing for the last 7.5 years. Last week, she became the longest-serving First Minister since devolution. The SNP have been in power now for 15 years, and that's 15 years of failure. And Scotland is stuck and going nowhere under the SNP.
That I completely agree with. She's had policy failure after policy failure. The problem is, Craig, and this is where I need to get tough on you too, the Scottish Tories are in trouble. I mean, you should be flourishing at the moment, given her appalling performance and the appalling performance of the SNP. But but you're not. So how are you going to save the Scottish Tories in order to properly fight Sturgeon's madness?
I don't accept that characterisation that the Scottish Tories are in trouble. Just this time last year, we put 100,000 more votes on and polled more votes in Scotland than ever before under devolution. And we maintained a record high 31 seats here in the Scottish Parliament. Now, I accept we've got more to do. And one of the things of the last election is that both Labour and the SNP in Scotland didn't want to talk about domestic policy. The SNP did not want to talk about their record on schools, hospitals, roads, railways, or their record during council elections, bizarrely. They didn't want to talk about their records.
Oh, no, of course they didn't.
Of course they didn't. After schools, because Glasgow is absolutely filthy.
Terrible record,
and across Scotland, we can see a litany of SNP failures. So what myself, Douglas Ross and colleagues want to do is focus on that failure and also just stress what a Scottish Conservative government would do here.
Yeah, but the problem is, the problem with that, though, is that you're at war with the UK's Prime Minister, Boris Johnson. You don't want him to stay in the job, do you?
No, I don't think we're at war at all with the British Prime Minister, Boris Johnson. Boris Johnson, like us, believes in standing up to the SNP, standing up for the Union. We had a disagreement at the beginning of the year over the future of the Prime Minister on the back of Partygate. But I think when Russian boots arrived on the ground in Ukraine, we said the context had changed. So we're saying not right now in relation to any change at the top.
But then Douglas Ross criticised him again last week after the publication of the Sue Gray report.
Yeah, I mean, I think people in Scotland are very, very angry at what they've seen coming out of Downing Street. It was an issue in the local elections here in Scotland, in the same way I think it is an issue across the rest of the UK. And I just hope that now that obviously the fines have been issued, the Sue Gray report has come out, and that the Sue Gray report was, don't forget, critical of the actions of many of those inside Number 10.
But are you going to back Boris? Is the Scottish Conservative Party going to back Boris? Because right now, it feels like you're not backing the Prime Minister. And the problem for me with that is that it looks like a divided party.
I don't think it's divided at all. I mean, we agree absolutely in the case for a strong United Kingdom, a Conservative government in the UK and hopefully here in Scotland. There was a disagreement over those activities in Downing Street. I don't think that's Scotland against Number 10. I think a lot of colleagues did have concerns. And I think it's now down for the Prime Minister to use the parliamentary inquiry to answer those questions that are outstanding. But we absolutely
so do you want Boris Johnson to lead the Tories at the next election?
Through the Ukraine crisis.
Do you want Boris Johnson to lead the Tories at the next election?
I want to see Boris Johnson clear the air around the situation at the moment vis-à-vis Partygate. I think we don't want to get into hypotheticals at this stage. The election is still some way off, but certainly.
But you're not prepared to back him.
We have a strong Conservative government that is equally strong here in Scotland.
But that sounds to me like you're not prepared to back him, though.
It's not that I'm not prepared to back him. I just think presently we just need to clear up a few of these issues that are still around Partygate, and also make sure that this parliamentary inquiry finally brings closure. Because I think
so you are reserving the right to call for Boris Johnson to go.
We need to get closure. We need to draw a line under this issue.
Well, I agree with that. I agree with that. But that's why I think the most powerful thing the Scottish Conservatives could do is to back Boris and just say, we're moving on from Partygate, it's over. But it sounds to me like you're doing, you're reserving your right, essentially, to renew calls for Boris Johnson to go in a few weeks' time.
No, I think what we're doing is we're saying we want to get closure. We want to get the final questions answered. We want the Prime Minister to account for those questions that are still unanswered. And the best way to do that is for a parliamentary inquiry at Westminster, not a Scottish parliamentary inquiry. This is not a matter
I'm so
for
sick
MSPs
of these
to say.
inquiries.
But we just make sure that we get to a point, and I think you said this earlier, where we're not talking about Partygate anymore.
I'm sick of it. I'm sick of it, Craig. It's like we've been speaking about Partygate for 6 months. I just feel like we've been speaking about Partygate for 6 months. We're in the middle of a cost of living crisis. Sturgeon is literally ruining Scotland. So I don't want this inquiry, if I'm completely honest. But look, I respect where you're coming from, because I understand a lot of Scots are angry with Boris, and I presume you feel you have to represent that feeling.
Yeah, and I think also at the same time, make no mistake, our priority every day, breakfast, noon and night, is to hold Nicola Sturgeon accountable for those failures. Because if you look at Scotland's drug deaths, for example, the worst drug death rate in Europe. And that's why Douglas Ross on Monday was announcing here in Scotland a right to recovery bill, so that we actually go out and fix the
Well, that sounds great. That sounds great, and it's very, very important. But all I'm saying is that if there's some sort of Tory civil war, it doesn't look good. But look, I really appreciate you coming in and explaining the position.
There's no Tory civil war. Don't worry about that.
Good news. Chairman of the Scottish Conservatives, thank you so much. We'll speak again soon, Craig. But coming up, as Virgin Atlantic becomes the first UK airline to allow staff to display their tattoos, our columnist extraordinaire and blank canvas, I'm told, Rod Liddle, I haven't seen it myself, meets Britain's most inked man in a colourful debate. But will Rod bend the knee to the king of Inkland? Don't miss this explosive uncancelled soon. But next is crashes, injuries and deaths surge. Are e-scooters just too deadly for Britain's roads? One of my superstar panels sadly has a connection to the UK's first e-scooter tragedy. We'll debate that after the break.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV, on radio, on digital.
Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices.
With honest and civilised conversation.
We're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join us for Ministry of Defence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was in fact a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
We're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, but I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Defence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
And let's return to tomorrow's news tonight now on our Media Buzz. Lots of front pages in now and in the Daily Telegraph, and I just love this. Look, it looks like a new portrait of the Queen. It's just been issued in the past few moments as she begins her Platinum Jubilee celebrations by releasing a message of hope to the nation. And by God, do we need that at the moment. So this is from the Queen. I know that many happy memories will be created at these festive occasions. I continue to be inspired by the goodwill shown to me and hope that the coming days will provide an opportunity to reflect on all that has been achieved during the last 70 years as we look to the future with confidence and enthusiasm. The Sun also runs with the Queen's official Platinum Jubilee portrait, and they say, don't you just love her? And yes, we do. The Daily Express too leads with a lovely message that I'm sure we can all agree with as Britain comes together to celebrate Her Majesty's magnificent 70-year reign. A grateful nation salutes you, Mum. And yes, we do too. But of course, those Republican Britain-hating grumps at The Guardian comparatively aren't too fussed by the Queen, are they? Is she even on there? No, nothing from The Guardian on the Queen, so I'm not even going to talk about it. Not going to talk about it. Do you know what? They don't like this country. They don't like this country. That newspaper ran a Republican's guide to how to avoid the Jubilee. What absolute misery guts. More on the Media Buzz now with tonight's superstar panel. The writer and media personality Christine Hamilton, the businessman and activist Adam Brooks, and the broadcaster Ashley James. Now, horrifying new stats on e-scooter accidents should have us all questioning why the hell these death machines will soon be given free rein on our streets. The number of pedestrians injured after being hit nearly quadrupled between 2020 and 2021 to a total of 223 people, 63 of whom were seriously hurt. That's before you get into the 1,034 e-scooter riders or passengers who were injured last year, 305 of whom were seriously hurt and 9 of whom sadly lost their lives. And last week it was reported that a 9-month-old dog was killed in an e-scooter hit and run in Salford Town, leaving its 63-year-old owner distraught. Greater Manchester Police have said inquiries into the May incident are ongoing. Despite this, a transport bill allowing e-scooters, which outside of trial schemes can currently only be used on private property, onto roads and cycle lanes, was announced in the Queen's speech. And earlier this month, Sarah Gayton, shared space coordinator with the National Federation of the Blind, travelled to Downing Street to deliver a major e-scooter petition, arguing the vehicles will, quote, completely take over due to the police being unable to regulate them. Members of the House of Lords have proposed an outright ban to prevent our streets turning into the Wild West. And Ashley James, look, I've been sounding off about the dangers of e-scooters for months, but I wanted to come to you on this first because I know you have a very personal connection to the plight of e-scooters on our roads.
Yes, I'm actually completely opposed to e-scooters. It terrifies me and haunts me. I lost a friend. She was closer to a friend of mine, Emily Hartridge. She died on an e-scooter in Battersea. I think she was the first person to lose her life on an e-scooter. And obviously that's just the most horrific incident that happened, and it was through no fault of the driver. She lost her balance, and this is the thing, I really strongly believe that e-scooters are not built for roads, and I see people all the time, even young teenagers with their headphones in, no helmets on, and it's haunting. And like, as you were saying earlier, it's not just the people riding them who it can cause harm to, it's pedestrians, animals, and yeah, I mean, that is, so sad.
Just so tragic.
Yeah.
So tragic. I mean, what a terrible case. And I guess you know firsthand that this isn't just a bit of fun. You know, it can actually cost lives. And Adam Brooks, I saw over the weekend, actually, these e-scooters being driven on the road. One of them, 4 teenage lads on one e-scooter.
4?
Right. So, look, I'm the father of a 12-year-old boy, soon to be 13. The thought of him on an e-scooter on the road next to a lorry...
And it is kids, right?
Yeah, or a bad driver, or even him being stupid and causing an accident, it horrifies me. So, look, I even think bike riders should have some sort of test. They should know what the dangers are on the roads. They should know what the dangers in the surroundings, what accidents can happen and why.
So you don't think ban them, you think...
I don't think ban them, I think licence them. And I think they should wear helmets. There has to be some sort of safety protocol with driving these things.
Hamilton, it's the Wild West at the moment. So look at that. Honestly, I walk everywhere, right? It's my thing. And, I don't drive, and I don't do it for the environment, I do it for me. But honestly, these killing machines literally nearly knock me down every single day because they don't stick to the right roads. They're very disrespectful. They go through the footpath. I mean, should we just ban them? It's not really in my nature to say that, really, but...
I'm not in favour of banning them, but, I mean, they need to be properly regulated. And you've only got to look at them. They are inherently unbalanced. They're lethal. People have got one leg in front of the other and they've got a little tiny hand. I mean, it's crazy. And they have this sense of entitlement. And as Adam says, nobody knows who's got them. They have no registration, no number plates. Of course they should have helmets on. The Met Police, as I understand it, don't... If they find a e-scooter driver, as it were, misbehaving, they don't take the scooter off him.
As if the police are going to do anything.
As if they're going to do anything, but they jolly well should.
About robberies.
I'd also just like to say that Emily was wearing a helmet.
Really?
And she was on her way to a fertility clinic. And so not only is it incredibly heartbreaking in her case, but she did everything right. She was wearing a helmet.
But actually, it's so dangerous, even if you wear it.
But Dan, my taxi driver tonight, I asked him about this because he's on the roads all the time. Yeah. And he said you know, we know roughly what bike riders, cyclists are going to do. You can judge roughly their behaviour, even if they're reckless. These go so fast and they're so unbalanced, they don't know where they're going to go.
Christine, final.
Well, what I find extraordinary, I did a minor bit of research. According to ROSPA, the Royal Society for the Prevention of Accidents, at the beginning of this month, they have published a study which found, believe it or not, that e-scooters are less risky than other forms of transport. They are 5 times, the risk of a collision is 5 times lower than a bicycle, 9 times lower for motorcycles. I find that difficult to believe.
I would just say for now. But you
Yes,
see,
for now.
those numbers are quadrupling because the thing is, they're not on the road much, but once they're on the road, I
that's
think...
per mile of travelling. So, I mean, they've tried to me, which I find extraordinary.
Interesting. OK, great stuff. Look, now after surviving multiple cancellation attempts, free speech champion and podcast star Joe Rogan has been reflecting on just how skewed our culture has become. Earlier this year, the brave podcaster found himself in the centre of a liberal media witch hunt for challenging the COVID orthodoxy and hosting the likes of mRNA vaccine developer Robert Malone, who raised questions over the efficacy of the COVID vaccines. It led to musicians, including veteran rocker Neil Young and singer-songwriter Joni Mitchell, hysterically pulling their music from Spotify, the platform that hosts his wildly successful The Joe Rogan Experience. Well, the sorry saga has got Rogan lamenting the disintegration and tolerance the disintegration of tolerance and speaking to comedian Fahim Anwar in his latest episode. He made an observation that, quite frankly, well, in my opinion, it hit the nail on the head. Look.
Who would have thought that if you look back on the early days, what we used to think of as conservative versus liberal. Liberal was pro-free speech. People were open-minded, non-violent, you know, and people were open to other people's ideas. And the right was like suppressive, you know, the nanny state, you know, condemn certain language, condemn certain behaviors. That's not the case today.
Yeah.
Today, the left has gone so far left, so radical that the right are the ones that are celebrating comedians and celebrating Chappelle. And
Yeah,
they had my back through all the crazy shit that happened with me. It was Fox News that had my back.
Would you ever think that they would be the ones to cape for you, like, 10 years ago?
I'm so liberal.
Yeah.
Like, I talk about it all the time.
I think he made a very good point. There has been a real shift in the dynamic of the hard left these days, and it's all about censorship and it's all about cancellation. Christine Hamilton, Adam Brooks, Ashley James, do stand by because coming up, it's the Queen of the United Kingdom versus the Queen, actually, of Adam Brooks' very own household in tonight's Greatest Britain Union Jackass. All will be explained as my panel reveal their nominations soon. But first, as Virgin Atlantic becomes the first UK airline to allow staff to display their tats, Rod Liddell meets Britain's most inked man. Hang tight, this is going to be an unmissable showdown in mere seconds after this preview of our special Platinum Jubilee show tomorrow night. Coming up on Dan Wootton tonight, as the Queen's Platinum Jubilee celebrations get underway, I'll bring you the results of an explosive royal opinion poll of the British public that spells bad news for Meghan, Charles and Camilla. Plus, Prince of Wales biographer Tom Bower and royal editor Robert Jobson bring you coverage of this historic moment for the monarchy. And there's unfiltered opinion from political firebrand Anne Widdecombe as usual, social media sensation Zuby too, and my superstar panel, the Conservative commentator Dominique Samuels, former Tory London mayoral candidate Sean Bailey, and author and broadcaster Amy Nicol. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. I'm looking forward to being with you on a very special bank holiday tomorrow night. Cannot wait. But now it's time for Uncancelled. And this is where Britain's top commentators speak out on controversial issues without the fear of the cancel culture sweeping the rest of the media. And there are plenty of unfavourable things on a plane, the lack of leg room, rowdy stag do's, your seat neighbour falling asleep on your shoulder. But does a tattooed flight attendant leave you clutching your pearls? Well, airlines are famous for having strict appearance rules, including a ban on exposed tattoos, with employees required to wear long sleeves makeup or plasters even to cover ink. Until today, that is. Trailblazing Virgin Atlantic has become the first UK airline and leading carrier worldwide to announce it will allow staff to display their body art proudly in the skies, marking an industry shift. But the move is causing turbulence with some people, including our very own Rod Liddell. Rod, you're not a fan of the tattoo. Is that true?
No, I'm not a fan of the tattoo, but, in fairness, it doesn't really bother me too much that Virgin Airways or Virgin Atlantic is doing this. It's not the most egregious thing that old Beardo's ever done. That would be taking all our money for his useless railway services. If he wants to have air stewardesses, with the tattoo of a dolphin climbing out of a butthole, I don't mind. You go ahead with it. I don't really care. It's just that the tattoo has become kind of so ubiquitous and so boring, and it says something about our culture at the moment, and it's a culture which I think is simultaneously narcissistic and very, very shallow. Everything we do these days is in order to draw attention to ourselves. And of course, you couldn't get a more shallow way of drawing more attention to yourself than the tattoo, which is literally and metaphorically skin deep. And that's what we have to put up with now. People desperate to draw attention to themselves by drawing on their bodies. It's a kind of equivalent. It's a kind of kidultry. It's like being 6 years old again. I used to draw on my arms when I was 6 years old. I had friends in school. I remember one boy who decided to tattoo the name of his girlfriend onto his arm with a razor blade and some ink once whilst I was in comprehensive school, and she binned him the next day. Which I thought was absolutely marvellous. It's utterly ubiquitous. The footballers all have them, apart from the really good ones. Whereas once upon a time, it was something which had a certain kind of rough nobility about it. You'd either been in prison or you'd been in the Royal Navy. Today, it's a kind of ubiquity. It's spread to the middle classes. I dare say the toffs have got them these days. I just think it's unsightly, but more than unsightly, representative of a culture which I just don't like anymore. Maybe I'm just a miserable old fucker.
Well, Rod, I do two sides of the story always on this show. So, Rod, I've got to bring in now the King of Inkland. Yes, that is his real name, changed by deed poll. And the King of Inkland is Britain's most tattooed man. So, King, great to have you. You've got to tell Rod Little he's completely wrong.
Well, first of all, I'm not going to disagree with him, which might surprise both of you and everyone. Everyone is absolutely entitled to their opinion, first of all.
That's true.
And he did touch on the very important history, prisoners, the Royal Navy. We go back thousands of years. One of the first human, the history humans were doing on their body, surgery and marking the body. So, this is my way of lifestyle. It's not everybody's. And that's a recent video of me getting inked today, as you can see. Wasn't a very pleasant experience.
Is there anything not inked, King of Inkland?
I'm pretty much head to toe covered. We're under taking tattoos off now with laser technology, which has drastically improved over the last 2 decades. This is my personal art, and Rod isn't the first and won't be the last kind of person that I've come across with those kind of opinions. And I get many people also in the tattoo community that do not like my art, but it's my personal choice of art, my own personal art collection.
Well, Rod, you've seen it now, Rod. What do you make of the King of Inkland?
I think he's got a large number of tattoos on his body, Dan. And if he wants them on his body, that's fine. I wouldn't try to stop the chap enjoying himself.
But would it be fair, Rod? Would it be fair if an employer didn't want to give the King of Inkland a job? Because this is the next thing now, that tattoos should become a sort of protected characteristic.
Yeah, not merely fair, but sensible. Because as the lad says, a lot of people get put off by looking like that. Now, I dare say quite a lot of people get put off by the way I look, which I've been told is like a sort of superannuated fat lesbian. But I don't mind that. That's without tattoos. So I don't really mind. But no, I think, I've seen complaints in the tabloid papers from various girls women who've had piercings all over their bodies and tattoos from head to toe, who then act shocked when they're not given a job in a place which is facing the public. Grow up a little bit. I mean, your mate over there isn't doing that. I don't think you are going for a job.
King of Inkland, I believe you do want tattoos to become a protected characteristic under the Equality Act. That's what I'm told. Is that right?
Well, actually, you're almost correct. I personally believe the Equality Act that Labour brought in is actually out of date because speaking to Damien Hines when he was Minister for Employment at the time, he actually in 2017 put out with the DWP press office that everyone in this country is entitled, first of all, to a good job, and why we have job centres and other access for people to gain employment. And then with everyone having the access to a good job, the fact that they should be able to gain employment. Now, I'm not going to be an air hostess or, it's not a kind of job that I see. But I do have friends that work in the airline industry. I respect them for it. It's their chosen profession. And, the money's not too bad as well. But for me, I have a different lifestyle. People like myself, we could be self-employed. I can't draw, so I can't be a tattoo artist. Let's first get that out. I am not a tattoo artist. I can do a stick man at the very best. There are people that also should come under the Equality Act protected characteristics already that, Rod, you may not have taken in, and it falls on people's deaf ears. Mental health is a protected characteristic already. And there are people that have OCD, and one of their compulsions, now I see you smirking, Rod. Okay, OCD. I know someone who is in their 60s, didn't have hardly any tattoos at first, and they've gone and shocked their entire family, their wife, by tattooing their face, and their compulsion is to get tattooed. That's just one element.
Rod, how do you respond to that?
Well, a couple of things. Firstly, Damien Hines is totally wrong. There is no right to a job. You earn the right to have a job by the way you present yourself in the interview, by how you perform in the interview, by what you say, by what you do. You don't have a right to a job simply because you live. However, protected characteristics. There should be one, Dan. One protected characteristic.
What's that?
That is that you are a human being. And that's it. All of the rest are, and I know you like to keep this programme clean, all of the rest are crap. They mean nothing. Protected characteristic, you are a human being, and everything else flows from that.
And I've got to agree, Dan, I've got to agree, which yet again might shock people, underneath we are all the same. We're human beings, doesn't matter what we look like on the outside. We've been doing this for hundreds of years. Some people are going to like it, just like the Mona Lisa. Some people aren't. Some people aren't going to have an opinion.
So, King of Inkland, have you struggled to get work because of the tax?
In the past, when I was white collar, working in office from call centre to, I've done management as well in office administration employment. When I first went visible with my throat ink pieces, I was moved. Actually, the office, I did actually tell management that I was going to get visible ink. They seemed okay with it. We had a big visit from management in London, and I wasn't told the reason why. I was shifted from the front of the office right down to the bottom behind a wall. They said they were having a move around. Strange, I was one of the only people that was moved.
Interesting.
But, I still had a job.
I guess you might say it's highly visible ink. Rod, you're not tempted? You're not tempted to get inked before you die?
I was tempted at the age of 21 to have a small Millwall lion on my left arm. That's as far as I got. But
of course you were.
No, what's the point? No.
We're going to clash there as well, because I'm Birmingham and we've had issues in the past, Millwall and Birmingham.
Birmingham. Proper club, Birmingham. Don't have a problem with them.
Well, look, fascinating conversation. Let's leave it there. Britain's most tattooed man, the King of Inkland. That's his name. It's an official name. And Rod Liddle. Thank you so much to both of you. Time now to reveal today's greatest Britain and Union jackass. Christine Hamilton, let's kick off with you. Who is your nomination for today's greatest Britain?
There's only one competitor in this, and it is, of course, our great and glorious, wonderful Queen. Her Jubilee has started, and anybody who doesn't love, adore and respect her should just pipe down and shut up.
Like The Guardian. Adam Brooks.
Exactly. Just give her this weekend. Just go abroad if you can get there.
My greatest Britain has got to be my wife, Chloe, my queen. It's my anniversary today. And I've been working in the pubs all day and here, so I haven't even seen her.
Oh, you bad husband, but you have nominated her, so I guess she'll
brownie
have to
points,
take
Dan,
that
brownie
as the
points.
present. What? Look how young you were there. How many years ago was that? 14?
14 years ago.
Ashley James, you're
My one is Justine Roberts from Mumsnet for holding the Prime Minister to account so brilliantly today.
Oh, I think we can see this moment.
Why should we believe anything you say when it has been proven you're a habitual liar?
Well, first of all, don't agree with the conclusion that.
That was a question, wasn't it, Ashley, from a Mumsnet member, and it truly left Boris Johnson speechless. But of course, today's greatest Britain. Sorry, Adam, because your wife is beautiful and sensational. She has to put up with you, so she should be the greatest Britain. Any other day she would be. But leading into the Platinum Jubilee, of course, it is Her Majesty, the Queen. Uni and Jackass time now. Christine Hamilton, your nominee.
Can I just say, I mean, I'm amazed. I honestly thought Adam would win that one. For all those carpers, they need to be reminded that there is no public money gone into this Jubilee weekend. It's all been covered by corporate and individual sponsors. Oh, my Jackass is the arch-bedwetter of Canterbury. I mean, for goodness sake, he presided over the decline of the Church of England when COVID was at its height, when people needed a bit of sanctuary and peace and everything. He closed the churches, he closed the Sunday schools. Now he is intervening about Prince Andrew, which is deeply untimely. He never mentioned, let's give Boris a bit of forgiveness. He just waded in on Boris. He should keep his nose out.
Adam Brooks, your Uni and Jackass nominee.
My Jackass is MP Tobias Elwood for his hypocritical stance on Partygate when he went to a Christmas dinner with 27 other people. He's got the nerve to criticise Partygate. And also, I think he's trying to get rid of Boris so we rejoin the EU.
Yeah, he said today, didn't he, that, we should maybe be in the single market. No.
So obvious, Dan, it's so obvious.
Ashley James, your nominee.
Mine is Prince Andrew for parading around. I feel like he just needs to get lost, especially this weekend, because it's about the Queen and not him.
OK, well, look, because I feel so bad about Mrs Brooks not being greatest Britain, because of course she is our greatest Britain too. Uni and Jackass has got to be Tobias Elwood for that. I mean, I completely agree with you, by the way, on the Partygate thing, because I wouldn't criticise anyone for breaking the rules, because I broke the rules, and we know you broke the rules, Tobias, so why are you criticising Boris for breaking the rules? But it was mainly for that intervention saying he wants us back in the single market. Hell no. Ashley James, Adam Brooks, Christine Hamilton, thank you so much for your company tonight. A fabulous superstar panel. I've told you enough times, but remember, back tomorrow at 9 p.m. We're celebrating the Platinum Jubilee, all of our regular features as well. I really do hope to see you on what is going to be a very special day. God bless the Queen. Long may she reign. Good night.
Hello, Alex Deakin here with your latest weather update from the Met Office. A fine day to come for the first of the bank holidays. For the vast majority, it's going to be dry and bright. Yes, a bit chilly first thing, but plenty of warm sunshine by the afternoon. The main exception will be Northern Ireland. This set of weather fronts just drifting in. It will bring more cloud here and a little bit of rain. But for most, we're under the influence of high pressure. Not many isobars on the chart, which means the winds are light, which means it is turning quite fresh out there. Temperatures falling, and it's also likely to turn a little misty. Even some fog patches possible over parts of eastern England through the early hours. Temperatures are tumbling. It is going to be a chilly start to Bank Holiday Thursday, well down into single figures. A touch of frost isn't completely impossible.